and volatility go hand in hand. We are going to deal with volatility into the future.
Peter, very good to see you. An important topic today, how to protect your retirement savings as markets plunge, or depending on when you watch it, when markets are volatile. Timeless advice in here regardless. If you are within 5 years of retiring, either before or after, you are at your most vulnerable financially. So we do want to walk through some steps to weather this volatility. Retiring in a down market presents a very unique risk known as sequence of returns risk. Can you explain why tapping into your invested money when the market is down can affect how long your money will last?
Yeah, and we've seen volatility, no doubt. But in the grand scheme of things, like the market has not lost a huge amount of ground here and thankfully has come back a little bit. But I don't think we're done with volatility. In fact, I could say that forever and ever. The market and volatility go hand in hand. We are going to deal with volatility into the future. And retiring when there is volatility is particularly precarious. It is dangerous because we are changing our behavior. We are changing the direction of money. When we're working, downturns in the market are an inherent advantage. It means that we are buying in on sale if we are making those contributions. But when we enter the preservation mode, when we want to protect that life savings, and specifically when we start making withdrawals, entering the distribution mode where we live in retirement, for most of us, we're taking withdrawals from our investments. Those same downturns that allowed us to buy in at cheaper prices during our career are now times where we are selling at cheaper prices. We're locking in losses. We're selling during a downturn, which they tell us never to do, right? And the reason they tell us not to do that is because those dollars, those shares are now removed from the portfolio. They don't get to participate in the recovery that hopefully eventually happens. So talking about these current events of market volatility, April 2nd was that Liberation Day announcement from Trump. There is a very big difference between an announcement of something and the enactment of something, the execution, when it actually happens. The market is a forward-looking indicator. So when Trump announced these tariffs, the market sort of priced in what it thought might happen in 90 to 120 days. And then things started to come back a little bit to reality. We saw a very sharp initial downturn, and then things sort of began to recover. But as of the recording of this, we still haven't actually seen the enactment of those tariffs or the execution or the effects of what they will be. And so I don't think we are done with market volatility completely, even in this,
Right.
microcosm of the discussion of tariffs. We will continue to see some volatility and some back and forth. I'm hopeful that we've seen the worst of it, but I cannot be certain of that. So if you are in a time in your life where you do not want to experience volatility, where it is no longer an inherent advantage, then you should be taking proactive steps to evaluate how your money, how your life savings is exposed to the volatility.
So then let's get into those very specific strategies. If you are in that retirement red zone and don't have decades or a decade for the markets to recover. Number one, build a cash cushion. Why is this important?
Yeah, during our working careers, regular circumstances, when we're not going to be liquidating, we still should have 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses sitting in cash. That is because life happens, emergencies happen, expenses happen, and we need to be able to get to money and know it's there to be able to get to it when those expenses occur. Well, the market going down isn't necessarily the same kind of emergency as an HVAC unit going out, but it does constitute an immediate need. You still have the need for income, and you don't want to liquidate that account when the market is down. So perhaps you should have a little bit more of a cushion, especially in the first several years of retirement. But that does not mean that you take that money and just sit it idle in a checking or savings account, gathering dust or underneath the mattress. You still need a little growth on that money. So there is some middle ground there where, yes, you're not taking the full risk of the market, but you're also not losing money safely to inflation. And I see those two extremes. Like somebody's like, oh, I've got 3 years worth of cash sitting there in case the market goes down. Well, 75% of the years or so, the market does not go down. So are you just losing money safely 3/4 of the likely outcomes? We don't want to do that either. So, explore those middle grounds, maybe with some more conservative investments that are not directly correlated to the movement of the market. But don't just let your money sitting idle gathering dust.
Right, of course. Next, consider changing the balance of equities and fixed investments in your portfolio. But this is a delicate balance, Peter, because it's growth and protection. As you just mentioned, we have to combat inflation.
Yeah. Well, over time, as the stock market generally performs better than interest rates and the yields on bonds, that means that your equity exposure and your risk actually grows over time. At the same time, because we are getting older and closer to retirement, our risk tolerance and the ability to absorb losses decreases over time. So not only do you need to fine tune this balance because of the nature of the market will throw off your alignment, but you also need to make course corrections along the way to make sure that the alignment that you're setting in place accurately reflects where you are today, not where you were 10 years ago, and where you want to be maybe 5 or 10 years in the future. If you've ever driven a car that's out of alignment and you sort of take your hands off the steering wheel, you'll begin to drift out of the lane. And so, really quickly, you realize that's dangerous. Like right in that moment, that can be dangerous. So you grab the wheel and course correct. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't have the cue that their financial vehicles are getting further and further out of alignment. You don't want to drift all the way off the road. Very dangerous to not monitor this and make these small course corrections along the way as you go.
Next, of course, you may want to consider adjusting your spending, but I want you to be specific, Peter. Are you talking about what we are spending or our withdrawal rate?
Both. If possible, both. But the withdrawal rate, a lot of times people kind of set it and this is what I'm going to withdraw. And they do that regardless of actual expenses. And retirement's not about replacing 100% of your working career income. Retirement success is about withdrawing only what you actually need to spend and live off of. So if you've got that delta there between what you're taking out and what you're actually living off of, like bring that down. You don't need to stockpile extra savings on a monthly basis because you're essentially like moving it from the left pocket to the right pocket, but the right pocket might not even be growing as effectively. Second, I do encourage people to look at the budget. Nobody likes that word. It feels very limiting. So maybe let's call it a spending plan. Let's look at the spending plan. Let's see how much you are spending and control that where we can. And a lot of people don't track this as closely as they should. And even if they do, they come in with what I call the line item budget. And it says, here's my mortgage, here's my insurance, here's my utilities, here's my car payment, and here's my total. And that's what they give me for living expenses. And I say, that's fantastic. Like that helps you identify what each of those subsistence line items cost, but let's actually see what you're spending. Let's go back to the root bank account and check this spending number against that over the last 6 to 12 months. And they come back and they say, whoa, I'm spending twice that number that I gave you. And that's lifestyle. And that's usually the largest and most controllable line item in the budget that gets overlooked or ignored.
Mhm.
And it's the one that we really need to carefully examine, especially as things might become a little tighter and we don't want to liquidate as much from our portfolio during volatile down markets.
Mhm. Next, this one is a little bit painful to talk through, but you may want to consider working longer. Obviously, that can help you with income, but can also help allow you to delay claiming Social Security.
You know, I actually see this more and more regardless of market conditions.
Yeah,
Today's retirement is not yesterday's, the last generation's
right.
retirement. Like this generation is healthier, is more motivated, is more active. So regardless of financial status, I'm seeing more and more people actually wanting just to be mentally and emotionally and physically involved in something. Now, it doesn't have to be the same day-to-day grind that they've been involved in for the last 30 years, but something that they believe in, something that they can be a part of and enjoy participating in, and the social aspect and the motivation aspect. So this isn't necessary. Like, I laughed when you mentioned this one, and it's not because like, it is because like nobody thinks of, well, I just want to work through my retirement, right? That's not what retirement is about. But in fact, it actually sort of is. Like, we need to find something, or we can quickly find ourselves less than motivated, and the prevalence of depression in retirement
Yeah,
is not spoken about
right.
nearly enough because people find a lack of activity and lack of motivation and lack of interaction, and then don't know what to do with themselves.
Mhm.
So remove the financial aspect from this. If you want to find something to do, like, there are things that you can do out there. And then
Absolutely.
from a financial standpoint, yeah, maybe retiring during the course of what we see as a potentially volatile market isn't like the opportune moment financially to step away from the paycheck and the security that provides. So if you can stomach it, or if you don't absolutely hate showing up at your job every day, maybe you push that back until we see a little bit more stability in the markets.
Hmm. My dad is 81 and still working.
Nothing wrong with that. Is he enjoying what he's doing?
Yes,
That's
absolutely. Oh, God help my mother and my dad if he were like fully retired.
that's
He
the litmus test, right?
he
Is
needs to
that
be busy.
can you stand being at home all day every day? Okay,
He
go
would
find
not do
something to do.
well.
And I think a lot
Yeah,
of spouses probably have those
yeah.
conversations behind
Right,
closed
right.
doors.
Show them this video. Tell them it's for everybody's good. All
Yep.
right, last and perhaps most important, Peter, in a down market, during market volatility, it really makes sense to speak with a fiduciary advisor, even just to see if you're on track. And perhaps you will learn that you aren't. And an advisor's job, a good advisor, will create that financial plan to weather this volatility to make sure that your nest egg lasts as long as your retirement.
Yeah, I'm a member of several advisor kind of discussion forums, and in one of those very recently, somebody posted a picture. They had a meeting set up with a potential client, and the potential client had emailed them, due to market volatility, we're holding off having conversations about planning. And his
Mm,
comment was, make this make sense. Like, that is absolutely the time
right,
that you
right.
need to be having those conversations. Like, don't allow yourself just to be run over by volatile markets. Plan proactively to look at that situation and say, okay, how do we need to position ourselves to best make our way through this in the best shape possible? And a lot of people just let life happen to them and let the market happen to them. And the market has gone up over time. And so even though we've gone through bad times before, that's worked out for most people during their working career. But again, like, if we are on the precipice or already in retirement, it's not the time just to let things happen and see where the cards fall. Like, let's be proactive, put a plan together that says, regardless of market conditions, we have certainty and durability with our plan. And if the market happens to do well into the future, hey, we're better than we even thought or expected to be. But
Mhm,
yeah, don't hold off. In fact, be more proactive about having those conversations now and making sure you're in good shape.
mhm. Well, Peter, again, I'm glad we got the chance to talk this through because I think a lot of people want to, and I speak as a human being, bury your head in the sand during these moments. But at least if you are taking action and being proactive, it is very empowering. So if somebody just wants to have a conversation with you to see if they are on track, what's the best way to reach you?
Give me a call, 919-300-5886, 919-300-5886. The bury your head in the sand approach. We all know that from the ostrich, right, in the cartoons. The funny thing was that was always a joke because the backside is still exposed when the head is buried. So don't just bury your head in the sand and ignore conditions and act like this isn't happening. Like, be proactive and keep your head up and alert and cover and protect your backside. Have those conversations, take some of these proactive steps to heart, think about them. And if you'd like to have conversations, please do give me a call at Richon Planning. We do offer a complimentary retirement planning strategy session. We put together for our clients and for listeners to this program, the optimized retirement plan. So if you want to optimize retirement, it is not just your finance, it is your future. Give me a call, 919-300-5886, 919-300-5886, or you can visit online at richonplanning.com. That's richonplanning.com.
Great. Peter, thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you. Hey folks, Peter Richon here with Richon Planning. So glad that you are enjoying the podcast, Planning Matters Radio. You know, one of the tools that we've put out there that people really seem to appreciate and really are finding of value is at 919retired.com. It is your retirement tax bill calculator. If you've got any kind of retirement account, your tax deferred, 401k or IRA, this is the website, this is the resource where you can go, you can plug in your own numbers, your information, you can slide the tool calculator up and down for your tax rate or your amount of savings and see what your tax bill is likely to be if you default and defer to the IRS's plan versus what you could potentially bring that tax bill down to. A lot of times it is a very significant savings. So if you have not yet, go to the website 919retired.com, run your numbers on the retirement tax bill calculator.
This has been Planning Matters Radio.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookzone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.